Welcome to the Tilting Ground Morning Paper Podcast, our newest iteration of podcasts on the tiltingground.com. I am Greg Flamong. You will have remembered me from the untitled USC Notre Dame podcast with Michael Muto. And with me is my best bud, Tim Norkus. Hey, bud.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
You're very excited.
I get to talk about sports more than I normally get to talk about sports.
And we talk about sports a lot, so
Yeah,
more is always better. So,
correct.
little background. Tim is my best bud. He is literally, he was my best man in my wedding, and I was his best man in his wedding.
Yeah, that's true.
So, he lives in Denver. I live in Long Beach, California. Um, so, we did our own little podcast with our friends, our good friends Mike Muto and Justin Glenn. Um, we decided to get together and do our own since we talk on the phone almost every day, so we might as well just put it on a recording.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
so what do you think of the name Morning Paper, dude?
I like it because for the most part, since it's happening kind of late, that if you're listening to it first thing in the morning, it's not going to be like, old news basically.
Right. So we're recording this on a Monday night. The draft took place over the weekend. We've got NBA playoffs going on. Tim likes to talk about the NHL, so I guess we'll do that. Although the Kings are out, so maybe he's not so fired up about it.
I'm watching Penguins Capitals right now.
Oh,
Literally watching it right now.
cool. So that's what this podcast is going to be about. Mostly sports, probably. We might delve into a little bit of politics because the country is, as we speak, going down in flames. At least on the GOP side. So we might delve into that a little bit, and anything else that's kind of topical. So why don't we get into it? The draft. What'd you think, Tim?
Um, I mean, first of all, it's great TV, right? Like, as much as I hate that they do it, like, just the first round on a Thursday night, like, it's great TV, and the ratings, it dominated the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs. So,
I
from
mean, it
that,
definitely was this year just because of all the trades.
right, but, like, I mean, it does every year. So, like, in that sense, I understand it, but, like, I mean, you come away from that first night watching 3 or 4 hours, and you're only through, like, one round.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, I understand why they do it. I don't love the setup. Um, and maybe it gives teams like a chance to regroup after the first round. But um, yeah, I mean, the only thing that I like now that they didn't used to do. It used to be you used to get 15 minutes for every pick in the first round,
Yeah, it
and
took
then
forever.
it would just be. I mean, you'd be 2.5 hours in, and you'd be on like pick 10 or 11, especially if there's a trade. Because the other thing they switched is if there was a trade, they would start the 15 minutes back over.
Uh-huh.
If there's a trade, the clock just keeps going.
Right.
So I mean, in that sense, it does go by a little bit quicker. I like having it like even though I don't live there and having it in different cities. I don't know. I just think that
Yeah.
that's more fun. Plus, they get to boo every time Goodell comes out. So
Always exciting.
yeah,
That's always great. Yeah, my wife was like, "Oh, I feel so bad for him." I was like, "Ah, you probably shouldn't. I
no,
think his salary is like $44 million. I think he's doing all right.
right,
I
yeah,
think, yeah,
absolutely,
I think he's all set."
yeah,
So I think in a perfect world, it would be first round, second round on the same night, and then like it would just be a 2 day thing. But obviously, like if they want to do it on like a Thursday or Friday, like if they want ratings, I mean, how are you gonna do like you can't start the first round at like 3 o'clock on a on like a Thursday or something. That's not gonna work out. So I understand why they do it, but just from like you said, like a viewing kind of like the best case scenario is the first 2 rounds on one day and then the remainder of the draft on the second
right.
day.
I mean, the only way that they could do it is if they even shortened the picks more. If they tried to
Yeah,
squeeze in the second round,
yeah,
I mean, it would have to be like. 5 minutes apiece. I mean, I maybe you could start it another hour earlier, so it would be like 4 Pacific and 7 Eastern, maybe.
Uh-huh.
But the problem is the draft. Like, I mean, I don't know what like their ratings look like in the sense of like where it's the highest, but you'd think like there'd be more anticipation for the first couple picks than like the middle of the first round or whatever.
And like if you shortened it, like if you shorten the time in between, then like I mean, it's like these guys like Mel Kiper, like they don't have time to talk. Like they have to analyze, right? Like that's I feel like that's half of it. Like I love like all the highlights that they do. Like that's why I like the draft so much. Like by the time like in the green room, by the time the guy gets up there and he's interviewed on stage and they talk about the pick and analysis or whatever, like that's 5-6 minutes right there. So if they shortened it, like it would just be too much. People, I don't know that they could enjoy it, especially
Yeah,
since the buildup is forever.
and I don't know exactly how they schedule it or how like the behind the scenes, but if you're watching and you see it and it says the pick is in, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like the commissioner's walking out right then. So like
Right.
maybe the pick can be in, but like you can let it breathe like another minute or so. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's gonna be tough, especially like to talk about all these things in a quick period of time. But
Uh-huh.
I mean that would be the downside, right? Like if you want the first 2 rounds, like you have to give something up. Well, like that would
Right.
be it.
Right. So, into like the draft itself, I mean the Jags, right? I mean that's pretty much how do you I mean, you have to say they've had a pretty good draft.
Yeah, I mean, like, when we did our mock draft and then like you kind of read things that come out after the draft, like, for the last 18 months, the Chargers have had like Joey Bosa #1 on their draft board. And it's like, the minute that he's taken, like, if you didn't take him in your mock draft, like the next 10, between him and Laramie Tunsil, the next 10 picks are all going to be
Yeah,
gone.
like you can't get them right. It's like
Right. So,
who knew the Chargers thought Joey Bosa was the next greatest thing ever.
yeah, and maybe he will be. I mean, I don't know. Like, I obviously like for the Jaguars, like you feel like it worked out great. Um, I mean, part of me feels like, and I was thinking about this today, like in regards to like Miles Jack and even like Jalen Smith. Like for as much effort as these guys put in, and I guess all the drafts in all the sports, like when you take a first round pick, like what's the success rate? And I don't mean like, oh, this guy's stuck in the league for a little bit. Like, what is the success rate? Like
Like
less
he's
than
a
50,
star.
yeah, like less than 50%, like 40%.
Yeah, probably.
So like when you get to the second round, it's going to be even lower. So then it's like, yeah, I'll take a guy with like we're not concerned about his play, we're concerned about his injury history. It's like, yeah, but like
Right.
everybody else you're in the second round, you're kind of concerned about their play because if you weren't, you would have taken them in the first round.
Right.
Um, it was kind of shocking to me that nobody like at the back end where like the teams are better and maybe they could afford to let someone sit for a little bit, like took them. Um, but then again, like the other side is like, well, like we're trying to win a Super Bowl this year, and so like even if Jalen Smith's great, like our window is now.
Right.
And
I mean, like I think the teams like I mean maybe they didn't know like the Cowboys were so fired up because the only other team I mean I can't speak for Miles Jack because I mean we only really heard about like his knee like the day of or maybe like the day before. It's like suddenly it's like oh like his knee is like a real problem. So I don't know like it was such an unknown. Like I don't know where he would have fallen if the Jags weren't just like all right what I mean we took Jalen Ramsey like let's just snatch him up. I mean,
right,
they already went through like having to sit a guy a year with Dante Fowler last year because he tore up his knee. So it's
right,
like they're getting Fowler back. So they probably feel like, well, I mean, we could just run it back, you know?
right,
Um, so I don't know where he could have fallen or where people were talking about him going, but like with Jalen, like I mean, obviously the Cowboys picked him, but then the only other team that I had heard about wanted to take him was the Pats, and they didn't pick to like 60 or something like that.
Right.
So a lot of teams might have figured like, hey, we're going to get a look at this kid coming back around. Obviously, the Cowboys, like it was their doctor. They had a lot more knowledge into it than other people. Plus, like, it was a very Cowboy pick. I mean, it's a very Cowboy draft, but it was a very Cowboy thing to do. So, I don't know. Like, I mean, to your point, like that's a good point about like I'm not concerned about him as a player. So if he is okay, then look at all the picks that like the Patriots have whiffed on, and it's like they're fine. I mean, they just released the kids from Florida, the Easley
Right.
kids. So sometimes they
Right.
hit, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, so it's not like you're passing up like a sure thing to take this like kid that maybe
Right,
it works out, maybe it doesn't. It's like no, like you have the exact same chance.
right,
Except the upside with Jalen Smith and Miles Jack is way greater than whoever else you were thinking about taking, probably. Now the
right.
downside might be worse in the sense that like, man, this guy might never be medically healthy to play, but like, I don't know, some of your picks are never going to be good enough to play either. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm always in favor of that. Like, I mean, even like for the Packers, like if they would have taken Jalen Smith in the first round, I would have been fine with that.
yeah,
Just because like the upside's so much higher.
right.
And like, there's no team that you look at and like, I mean, like even the teams that you feel like draft great, like the Ravens, it's like everybody has misses. Like, it's never a sure thing. Like everyone thinks they know, and then you get them on the field, and you're no one's ever really sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like this
So
kid they drafted, like the Packers, like like yeah, he's healthy, but they don't know that he's going to be good.
right, and it's like not only that, but like the draft went great for them. Like they had their choice of so many different guys, right? Like they could have taken
Uh-huh.
Reggie Ragland, or they could have taken Ashawn Robinson, or Jaron Reed, or any of the other defensive tackles.
Right.
And so like they're basically like just
They're just guessing.
yeah, they're just guessing at that point. It's not like, well, like the Eagles, like, all right, well, they took Goff, so we're taking Wentz. It's like, nope, they had their choice of basically every single one that they want, and that's who they chose.
Yeah.
Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
they have plenty of misses too. I mean, they have hits, but they have plenty of misses too.
uh, so you're in Bronco country over there, and they made a move in the first round um, to get Paxton Lynch. From what I've from what you've told me, like over the years about the Broncos and how their fans generally react to these sort of things, I imagine they're pretty fired up with this kid.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely. See, I don't know if it's the kid or the situation, right? Because
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I'm. Yeah.
like you're going into the draft, you have two quarterbacks on the roster. You have Mark Sanchez and you have Trevor Simeon. Um, and like neither do you feel good about long term, right? Like
Right.
so like even if Mark Sanchez can like buy you a year, like you're still have that like holding on to Paxton Lynch. But what's kind of funny about the situation is like they just let a quarterback go. Now, granted, he was a second round pick, but they just let a quarterback go who like basically never played, and they drafted him in the second round. Like that was almost like one of the biggest. That was almost one of the biggest wasted picks.
Right.
So, I mean, I think the thinking is like, I mean, Paxton Lynch has never played in a pro style offense, so like if he has to play this year, then the Broncos are in bad shape. But like this isn't a team that's like rebuilding. Like they need to try and win another Super Bowl, right? So like
Well, they did just win a Super Bowl with like, I mean, almost not even a quarterback playing.
that's true.
I mean, Peyton Manning was bad.
But like
Um,
I guess the thing is like, is that repeatable? Like no, it's not really
I
repeatable.
mean,
Like
no way.
you can't get
I mean,
like
you
if you
can't
get
count on it.
right, like if you get that same quarterback play this year, like you're probably gonna miss the playoffs. Forget winning a Super Bowl, you're probably gonna miss the playoffs.
Right.
So
I mean, obviously, you have to factor in too. Like, is Brock Osweiler now that much better than Paxton Lynch now? and because the price tag is obviously much different.
I mean, yeah, you got to think Brock Osweiler now is certainly. I mean, just because Paxton Lynch is a rookie. B, he's never really played in this pro style set or like taking snaps under center. But
And to my knowledge, oh, go ahead.
I think the question is like, once he gets settled in, is it going to be better? Like a year and a half from now,
Yeah,
when they're going into next year's camp.
When DeMarcus Ware is like not in the NFL anymore.
Right, like DeMarcus Ware will probably be gone. They'll probably lose Aqib Talib. I mean, they'll just have cap casualties. Like even if guys play well, like that's just kind of the nature of the sport.
Yeah. And from what I mean, I don't remember Brock Osweiler ever losing by 25 to Navy at home. So, like Paxton Lynch did. I can't get over it. That's something I can't wrap my mind around.
Well, Brock Osweiler only played 1 year at Arizona State. Like I know they weren't obviously great, so I mean I don't know like who they beat or who they didn't beat, but like I'm sure they have losses.
Yeah. Well, what else stood out to you in the first round?
First round.
Yeah,
I mean,
because like it's hard to evaluate like drafts in totality, because
right.
Like who knows?
Right, like I mean, kind of like there's a couple things that kind of stood out to me just like overall, but like for first round, I mean, Eli Apple seemed like that was pretty high.
I mean, over Vernon Hargreaves, which was, I mean, that was surprising to me. It's not that they took a corner; is that they took him ahead of Vernon Hargreaves. It was almost like Vernon Hargreaves had to go to Tampa Bay. Like even if he was available, it's like no, we got to let them have him.
Yeah. The other one was probably Corey Coleman going as the first receiver. Right.
Okay.
I mean, he's a good player, but like I don't think like between Laquan Treadwell and Josh Doctson, like I think it was generally assumed that like it would be one of those guys, and then now you're kind of like you're choosing who you like best. So I thought that was kind of surprising.
Well, then you would, and then you would say like that Will Fuller went second too. Then,
right.
Both those guys were picked ahead of Treadwell and Doctson.
Right. So I mean, I guess the Treadwell thing is kind of understandable, just because like maybe injury history there, but like the Josh Doctson thing, like I don't understand.
Yeah.
That I don't understand. So, I mean, the Washington picked him, which like I mean, it should be a pretty good fit for him. Like I don't know how good for the team it is, just because like. I mean, he's going to be like the third or fourth receiver this year. Now, granted, like I understand they might have some free agency issues next year, but like, I mean, they're going to lose a lot of like 35, 31 games maybe. So, yeah.
What did you think? Go ahead.
Oh, the thing that is like for me the most interesting was that German kid that got picked by the Vikings. Like that.
Oh yeah. With the whole thing where like Mike Mayock was like talking to Mike Zimmer, telling him to draft him, and then like 2 minutes later he drafted him.
Yeah, like I love that. Which like it kind of sucks because like I mean since he's going to be on the Vikings, but like I'm super interested in following that. Like I remember the 49ers had that Australian rules football player from last year.
Oh yeah,
following him. So, I mean, this kid. I mean, obviously all the measurables are there, and like football kind of seems like the one sport where like you feel like, hey, if this guy's super athletic, like we'll just teach him the game on the go.
Do we have the Hard Knocks team yet?
Rams.
Oh right. Okay, yeah. Okay. I was gonna say throw Minnesota in there with their guy.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, that would be super interesting. It's just funny watching his tape. Like, I mean, like usually when his tape is almost like a high school tape where like the kid's super good and playing against inferior competition. Where like usually like your college tape doesn't really look like that.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, he's way bigger than everyone. I mean, he's just way stronger. He's way faster. It's pretty unbelievable. Like it looks like high school tape because like they're playing it like basically what looks like high school fields, and like there's a few hundred people in the stands, maybe like 1,500 at most, and he's just dominating. So, yeah, I mean that was pretty fun.
So, what do you think of the whole Laramie Tunsil thing? Because here's what I don't get. Like, teams were talking about him, like, being, like, like he could have gone number 3. And when Tennessee was at number 1, like, he could have gone with the top pick. Or at least people, like, that was on a lot of mock drafts and stuff. So then this whole video comes out, which, it is what it is. I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen it. He's smoking through, like, a gas mask, like some weed or whatever it is. Apparently it was from a couple years ago, like he owned up to it or whatever. So, you get word that, like, oh, he's, like, teams are taking him off the board, which I don't really get, because, like, there are guys who, like, Randy Gregory, like, tested positive at the combine. Like, no one took him off the board. Like, I don't, that's something I don't really get. And, like, Laramie Tunsil in the lead up to the draft, like, he's passing all of his tests. So, I mean, you just got to make a phone call. And yet, like, Tennessee, they traded up in the number 8 to take a tackle, and Laramie Tunsil's sitting there. And it's like, I understand, like, it's kind of weird what's going on. With, like, the bong is like, when did he do this? Was it like, it's like, obviously he was kind of hacked. Like, he's not going to be posting this video from, like, the green room when it was posted on his Twitter. So obviously something happened that wasn't supposed to happen. And then he falls to 13. It's not like a Miles Jack thing where he fell all the way to the 2nd or 3rd round or whatever, or like Lyle Collins last year. Like,
yeah,
he fell to 13. And it's like, if you're Tennessee, you traded up to take Conklin. It's like, why did you trade? I didn't get that. Like, why don't you just stay where you are and have a tackle fall to you and not have to give up any picks? Like, did they like Conklin that much? I don't know. I mean, it's like, if he's going to fall to 13, like, just take him at 8.
Right.
Yeah. That's something I didn't get. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, it's hard to judge these things. Like, I mean, look, like, it's hard to judge them, like, as players, just because, like, I'm not sitting down there breaking down tape and, like, watching footwork and hands, but, like, maybe it's one of those, like, if you're a team and you already have kind of some issues with him, like, look, this kid's ineligible, he couldn't really stay healthy. Now it's like this thing comes out. I mean, that I kind of understand, but at the same time, it's like, at what point would you take him? You know what I mean?
I mean, apparently,
like, I don't, like, I could understand, like, if it's like a 5th round pick and now something comes out, it's like, yeah, it's just not worth the risk. Like, why do it? Like, to take him, like, completely off the board, like, that just seems ridiculous.
I just don't believe that stuff. Like, if they're sitting there in the 2nd round and he's available to them and it's their pick, like, they're not going to take him. Like, that's ridiculous.
Right. Well, and so I'm more looking at it like this too. Like, he's an offensive lineman, right? So, like, like, all this is going to be forgotten because he's not going to score any touchdowns. He's not going to basically ever have his helmet off. Like, it's an offensive lineman. So, can he pass all the drug tests, which he has? Like, yeah, I mean, it's not, like, to me, it's just not a big deal.
That is a good point about the fact that he's a lineman, because when the Rams, they took Greg Robinson, number 2, I want to say, was it last year or the year before? And
I think it was the year before, because it was one of I think it was one of the RG3 picks.
Yeah. And he's just not a good football player.
Yeah, like, if this was a quarterback.
But you don't know.
Right. If this was a quarterback, I could totally see, like, just nope, not drafting him. Like, we can't have this guy. Like, then I could totally understand that, right? Yeah. If it's a quarterback, but, like, man, it's an offensive lineman. Like, come on, it's an offensive lineman. So.
Yeah, and then obviously there's I think the other big one was just the Cowboys taking Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, it's a running back at 4. Who isn't like some super freak specimen. um, which seems kind of against the grain nowadays with all this passing stuff. And you got to wait to the second round to grab a running back stuff. I personally, I don't know. I think Ezekiel Elliott is awesome. I
I
mean,
mean, look, like
I'd be nervous about. Go ahead.
behind that offensive line, like it's always going to be. I feel like it's going to be hard to judge, right? Because like as long as Tony Romo stays healthy, like they're going to be able to run the ball with kind of anybody.
Right.
So like it just didn't seem like a huge need.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. It's really bad that they didn't end up getting their quarterback. I mean, they wanted Paxton Lynch pretty bad. Just reading Peter King today.
Right. So like they were giving up a second and a fourth,
And it was had to be a second and a third.
and it had to be a second and a third because the Broncos were giving up a first and a whatever. I don't remember what it was. Maybe a first and a fourth or a first and a fifth or something like that.
Yeah, it was 31 and like 60 something. And the Cowboys were offering 34 and 90 something or something like that. Or no,
Wait,
it was
so
100 something.
the the Broncos second pick wasn't in the 60s. That would have been their first and second round pick.
Okay, so I mean maybe it was 31 and like maybe it was 80 something then.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Um I mean, I don't know, like I don't feel like I know they feel and I read the same thing. Like I know they feel like they missed out, but like I mean, I don't know, like I don't have a lot of faith in Paxton Lynch, I guess.
I mean, to me, it's one of those things like you wanted him and you didn't get him and you could have gotten him. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I understand like the last couple of years, Tony Romo's gotten hurt and it's pretty much ruined their season. I mean, and granted, like that's kind of the case for a lot of teams, but
Yeah.
you know, like you have all these weapons around, you can have Ezekiel Elliott, and if you don't have a quarterback, then it really doesn't matter.
Right. Absolutely.
So, all right, well, we can say bye bye to the draft for another year. Um, it was fun as always.
Yep. Browns will be on the clock for the number 1 pick next year already. See what I did there?
I see what you did there. Trolling Justin. So okay, well, let's see what else is going on in the sports world. The NBA play. Well, first of all, actually, you know what? I'm gonna change this around a little bit because I'm in LA, which means I can't watch the Dodgers. And you are the resident Dodger fan, so let's talk a little bit about them. Like, what's going on with the Dodgers? Like, where are they at in the standings? Like, what's their record? What are they good at right now? What are they not good at?
So I actually saw the video this morning. They won a game yesterday to avoid a winless homestand. For going 0 and they were 0-6 going into the game, so they finished a 7-game homestand against the Marlins and the Padres. 1-6. So.
Well, I know the Padres are not great, so I don't know anything about the Marlins. But
well, so here's the thing: like when you're only like 22 or 24 games into the season and you sweep a 4-game series, it's like I don't know if they're great either, but like they're they're at least 4 games better than they used to be.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I mean Clayton Kershaw's good. The kid from Japan, I guess he's not really a kid, he's like 27. Maeda's been really good. So like he's kind of stepped into the Greinke role. They signed Scott Kazmir, he's been awful. Alex Wood, who they traded for last year, he's been awful. The Stripling kid who they pulled with a no-hitter the very first game of the season, like for being the 5th starter, I mean he's been all right. The bullpen's been terrible and they can't hit. So other than that,
awesome.
though, it's going amazing.
Awesome. I'm really glad that they like this money that went into the Time Warner deal, which means I can't watch the Dodgers and they're my hometown team. I'm really glad that that's been put to good use.
Well, so the thing that upsets me the most, and I'll never forget this, and anytime I have a chance to talk about it, is this was a couple months into like the new tenure with the new ownership group. It's like, nope, we don't have like no one's ever told us how much money we can or can't spend. Like as far as I know, like we just spend as much money as we want.
Right.
So they basically cut $100 million in payroll this offseason.
Right.
So like they had a chance to get Zach Greinke or resign him, didn't do it. Johnny Cueto, nope. David Price, nope. Jeff Samardzija, nope. I mean, pretty much like anybody who was everybody or everybody who was anybody, like just nope, like outbid.
Yeah, like
And
there's people out there to get. It's like, why aren't you getting them?
oh, my Bluetooth just went out, so now you have but yeah, I don't understand. And like I think the most frustrating thing is like you look at the Giants and they've won a couple World Series and it's like, yeah, we'll spend money on Johnny Cueto and Jeff Samardzija.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's a sore spot for me. The other thing, like whenever I talk, not that I talk to a lot of baseball people, but like you hear about these kids like Jock Peterson and Corey Seager and how good they are, and like yeah, they're supposed to be good, but like they're basically Bryce Harper's age, right?
Right.
They're Mike Trout's age. That was 2 years ago. And so, like, I don't know how good they're going to be, but they're not going to be as good as that.
Right.
And so you look at someone like Jock Peterson, where, like, a year and a half ago, like, you could almost trade him for anybody in baseball. Now it's like, I mean, he's been okay, not great.
Right.
And now it's like, I mean, they couldn't even really play him against left-handers last year. So, I mean, I understand you want to play these kids and see where they're at, but, like, you've certainly overvalued how good they are.
And not just that,
I
but
mean,
like you can't count on them. You can't count on every single guy to be amazing, right? Like you're gonna miss on some people. Like that's just the nature of it. So it's like get proven people. It's like that's why you have the payroll. It's like that's why you have so much money.
well, and then part of it for me is like you're kind of wasting like Clayton Kershaw's prime.
Right. Yeah.
Like I actually thought when I was talking to someone this year, like I was like, I think he's gonna have a down year. Not like he's not gonna pitch well, but like for him it'll be down year. Like instead of being
Right.
like, instead of having an ERA around 2, maybe it'll be around like 2.8. Just
Yeah.
because like at some point like this guy is not gonna be like unhittable. And so like the weird part is like you see them kind of like clearing cap space for a couple years from now when like Bryce Harper's a free agent,
Right.
which like yeah, he's great, but like in that same thing, like Clayton Kershaw is going to be a free agent, so you're gonna have to sign him, and this is still 2 years from now. Like
Yeah.
this isn't this offseason, like this is after next offseason. So like at that point, like how much longer is Clayton Kershaw's prime? Like it feels like he's already been great for 5 years,
Mm.
plus this year and next year. Like then what are you gonna do?
Yeah. At some point, you're gonna turn down.
So yeah, what's actually funny about their stupid TV deal is, so I didn't buy the package just because like all their games, their West Coast games start super late.
Right.
And when the Dodgers were out here visiting, I was in LA. So like what I would normally be able to see here on the local TV, like I was staying with my parents and they have direct TV, so I still couldn't see them.
No dice.
No dice.
No dice.
So yeah,
I mean, really, it just saves a bunch of arguing. Like, it saves my wife, like, asking me, like, why are we watching baseball? So I haven't had that conversation for 3 years. So I guess in that sense, it's a positive. But like, I would like to, tune into their game like every now and then, and just,
right,
I mean, it's not even an option.
right.
No
Like
option.
I mean, like every fifth day, you're gonna be like, "Oh, I have a chance to see Clayton Kershaw," and then like 4 or 5 times a year, it's gonna be like, "Oh, it's this fifth inning or sixth inning. He hasn't given up a hit yet."
Yeah.
And now it's like, "Oh, maybe I can. Maybe if I want to watch it, I can."
Yeah.
So
All right, well, let's segue into some real LA sports and talk about the next Hall of Fame coaching hire that the Lakers just made. So Byron Scott is out. I really enjoyed his. He had a quote today on the Dan Patrick Show that he was blindsided by being fired. I thought that was pretty cute. Like, dude, you went 17-65, man. Like, what'd you think? You thought your position was locked up?
Well, I think maybe he thought that he was blindsided in the sense that, like, how many coaches who aren't coaching there anymore do they want to pay at one time?
He said, "Well, I mean, so you think he was counting on being like just the finals? Like, no, we got to keep this guy around."
Well, because you know what, honestly, you know what I thought, and I had mentioned this before, is if they don't, like, if they lose their pick, like, just keep him another year. Right? Because, like, it's still a total rebuild. Like, if they lose their pick. Now, if they don't, like, if they pick first or second, then yeah, then you fire him. But, like, you're going to know that in, like, 2 weeks. Now, I mean, like, if you're it's like, well, look, like, we really want Luke Walton, and he's going to get a head coaching job, so we got to do it now. I mean, I understand that, I guess.
Well, and we were talking a little bit earlier, and you said that, and like, to me, it has really nothing to do with the pick. Like, if they get the pick, then I mean, they're still rebuilding, right? Because it's not like, let's say they get number 2, right, and they draft either Ben Simmons or Brandon Ingram from Duke, or whoever. There's no one in this draft that's like, oh, okay, like it's not like Anthony Davis is in this draft. And even when he was coming out, like he wasn't what he was like 2 or 3 years in the league or anything. So it's a rebuild anyway. I think that like it comes down to free agency and what they're going to do in that. Like, can they get? I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know who's available, but I mean, I know that they're going to have a ton of money, and can they get some people in here who it's like, okay, so they can get like one big fish in 2017. It's like, are you going to get some guys to come in here and maybe you can win like 44, 45 games? Maybe D'Angelo Russell starts to look good. Maybe, Jordan Clarkson and why can't I think of it? Julius Randle. They start to look really good. And then you get a free agent. It's like, oh, okay, there's some buzz here now. And then, you can get one really big fish, maybe Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook or something. Although I don't know if I'm feeling too great about Russell Westbrook, but that's a conversation for another time. But like, that's the hope. But if it's just the draft pick, like, it's a rebuild anyway.
Well, I agree and disagree. It's a rebuild, but isn't it like a rebuild kind of in the sense that, like, what this year? Like, it's like the year before the year, right? Like, it's the year before the year. Like, Minnesota terrible this year, but like, don't you feel like right now, like, man, Minnesota, like, they've, like, this is a team on the come, right?
Yes.
Where like, if you don't get that pick, then it's like, yeah. Now, I will say this, like, going into the new CBA, like the cap space thing it's almost whatever, because everybody's going to have huge cap space. Like, everybody's going to have it. So, I mean, yeah, well, some teams have a little more than others, sure, but like, everyone's going to have money to spend. So, I mean, look, like, we were young at the time, but like, when the Lakers made the move for Shaq, he wasn't exactly coming to like a proven winner. Now, it wasn't like it was a 17-win team, but like, he wasn't the one piece they were away, right? So like, there's always that allure that, like, look, it's LA. Right? I mean, that's what you're banking on. Like, look,
yeah,
it's still LA.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that team, it's hard to remember when I was 15, but like, they had Cedric Ceballos and Nick Van Exel and Eddie Jones. I mean, they were, I don't know if they were a playoff team, but I guess they had pieces that you could consider, like D'Angelo Russell and Jordan Clarkson and Julius Randle, like, after next year, maybe.
Right. So
really well.
Would you say that, I mean, the biggest difference between then and now is like, then Jerry West was calling Shaq. Now it's like, well, we think it's going to be Mitch Kupchak again, but like, it's Mitch Kupchak with like Jim Buss, not Jerry West with the dad.
Yeah. I mean, I think, there's that for sure. And it's also, I mean, Shaq wanted to make movies, And so
that's helpful.
I mean that was a big thing. So I mean, as far as Luke Walton goes, like I have no idea if he's going to be good or not. Like maybe he will, and maybe he won't. You know, he was 39-4 with the Warriors. Like he was 39-4 with the best regular season team ever. So good on him for not screwing it up, I guess. I think the thing that I like about it is that it's universally kind of lauded. Like people are pretty excited about it. And so it gives them a little bit of credibility, I think. Like Byron Scott does not. Like he does not move the needle. I think Luke Walton is the hottest thing going right now as far as just buzz and cachet. And so I think that kind of like that. I think that means something, you know, because Notre Dame, the Lakers need they need the PR right now.
Yeah, I mean,
with the Kobe thing, you know, that's ending, and then the goofball D'Angelo Russell stuff. Like they need some positive vibes around just the organization in general.
I mean, I kind of feels, and like this is gonna sound like the dumbest statement ever, but like it kind of feels like coaching's kind of overrated and underrated all at the same time. Like it's overrated in the sense that like you could put Phil Jackson and Red Auerbach and Steve Kerr and Luke Walton on this year's Lakers team, and like they're still not coming close to the playoffs, right? But at the same time, like if your aspirations are to win an NBA title, like you playing another team 7 times in 2 weeks, like the coaching really matters. You know, I mean, right. Mark Jackson got the Warriors to the playoffs with the same team. It's not like, you know, it's not like the Warriors were going to be terrible, but like, you know, I don't know what the best case scenario is or like what projections you would think like, hey, if you have X coach with this roster, you're going to win this many games. And if you have Byron Scott with the same roster, you're going to win, you know, whatever amount of games. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like a good coach is probably worth like 5 to 6 wins a year. And like a bad coach is worth like negative 5 to 6 wins, right? Like, so it's like it's a 12-game swing.
Right. I mean, like it's in the margin. So like, I kind of look at it like losing weight, right? So like if you want to go from like 250 to 150, like losing the first like 50, 75 pounds, like that's pretty, like you eat better and you eat better and you work out and you exercise. Like it's pretty much like that's what you need to do, right? And it's like with the NBA, it's like it doesn't matter, you know, to go from, you know, 17-65 to 50 and 32, like you need good players.
Yeah.
Right. This is pretty basic. But to get from, you know, like the Clippers, like a perfect example of this, like the Clippers are that team that has gotten from basically 250 to 160. And to lose that last 10 pounds, like now you need to be a lot more disciplined, a lot more nuanced. Like you need to basically have a really good plan because now you're in the margins. And like right now, it's like the Clippers are failing in those margins. And then maybe if they had a better coach or a better GM or something like that, you know, they could get over the hump.
And their coach is their GM.
Which, yeah. And that's obviously not going very well for them. So I kind of get, I hope you got the weight loss analogy because I just thought of it right now off the top of my head.
Brilliant.
Thank you, sir. So that's the Lakers. I mean, I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic. I like you said, like I almost don't even want to watch the draft lottery because if they don't keep their pick, like it's all this, like everything that this season was, like it just goes down the toilet. It's like it's just a wasted year,
right?
That didn't amount to anything. It didn't help anything. Like nothing was gained or at all.
Well, I mean, look, like the plus side is that like no team has stayed competitive for longer than they have for the last like 50 something years, right?
This is true.
The downside is like 20 years ago or 25 years ago, you could have said the same thing about the Boston Celtics. And then, once Len Bias gets killed and Reggie Lewis dies and Larry Bird retires, it's like, they had a couple years with Antoine Walker and Paul Pierce. They were good, but it basically took 25 years to get good again. So,
well, it's like I told you. I've told you plenty of times. Like you can't. You get a guy like Kobe for 20 years. It's like that just doesn't happen.
Right.
It's like I've told you so many times. Like I enjoyed it while it was here. It was 20 years, 7 NBA finals, 5 championships. I mean, that just doesn't come around. It just doesn't. So, I enjoyed it while it came. I hope it doesn't. I hope it's not 25 years before they're good again. But look, from 15 to 34, they were great. So yeah. I can't. That's nothing for me to complain about.
Absolutely.
So, so let's see. So the Warriors went up 1-0 yesterday. They beat up on the Blazers pretty good. How good is Draymond Green, do you think?
I think he's all NBA.
So one of the best 5 in the league.
Yeah, so positional wise, I don't think that they would do that because he's considered a forward, but there's not really a center, right? Who's going to be the all NBA center? I don't know if they consider LaMarcus Aldridge a center, but he's certainly, and he's a good player, but he certainly hasn't had a better year than.
I mean, if you're talking about pure centers, you're getting into the Andre Drummonds and DeAndre Jordans of the world.
To me, the biggest indictment about DeAndre Jordan's career was the last couple games without Blake Griffin and Chris Paul. It's they paid him all this money, and it's dude, we can't. He's so one-dimensional.
Right.
So yeah, I think this, the one thing, and it's it's always kind of funny that when it comes back to always that 96 Bulls against the Warriors, they talk about how good Scottie Pippen is, and I think right now the Warriors have 3 of the best 15 players in the league and 2 of the top 5.
So you think Clay is top 5 in the NBA?
No, he's top 15, but Curry and Draymond Green are 2 of the top 5.
Oh, right. Draymond top 5.
Yeah. So, and the other thing that's kind of weird is I think last year when Curry won the MVP, it more felt he had a great year, and LeBron's probably still the best player, but he just kind of bided his time for the playoffs and sat out some games and didn't play as many minutes. But this year, it kind of finally feels nope, he literally is the most valuable player and best player, right? Last year it was a different feeling. So, yeah, I mean.
Wait, so you think so? So you think Draymond is top 5 in the whole, regardless of position?
Yeah, I think if we were if you were voting on all NBA, which 5 players had the best years this year? He's in my 5.
Okay, I want your list. So let's just say Curry, LeBron.
I would go Curry, LeBron, Kawhi Leonard.
Okay.
Draymond Green, and probably. I mean, I don't know what the numbers say, but honestly, I'd probably still go Russell Westbrook
over Kevin Durant.
Yeah, and let me tell you why. I'm
very intrigued.
I'm actually a big Russell Westbrook guy in the sense that I think his A game, which probably doesn't happen as much as maybe it should, but I think his A game, it might be the best in the league, right? Plus, I always feel you get that max effort, every time you get that max effort.
Yeah, you definitely get max effort.
I don't feel you don't get max effort from LeBron every night, and that's fine. He's been in 5 NBA finals, but with Russell Westbrook, I'm getting it. But even then, so like, okay, so now I still feel like maybe Draymond Green's top 4 then. How about that? Top 4.
I mean, top 4 over Durant.
I mean, they won 73 games.
They did. No. Like, I'm not. It's just. It's like, I don't know. That seems kind of. That seems pretty excessive. Now I have to look up some stats, which is unfortunate that we're getting into this.
Well, I mean, like the argument for Durant is always going to be like, well, he can take over the game scoring, right? Like that's always your argument. Like that's, I mean, he's obviously not a better defender. He probably doesn't average as many assists. I mean, I don't know, like.
I mean, it's hard to. It's
how many
hard
games?
to
What
say.
did they? How many games did they win this year? Like 53 or 56? Like that's 17 less games. Like that's so many.
That is a lot. Let's see. They went 55, so they're 18 games back.
18 games back. Oh my gosh. 18 games back with Durant and Westbrook.
It's definitely a lot of games. I mean, so the problem is like quantifying what Draymond brings is like it's hard to put into stats.
Well, so there would be a couple different ones that you would probably look at, and it would be either like PER or like win shares. Like, I mean, I'm those would be the numbers I'd look at. I mean, I don't know what they are off the top of my head. Now, like PER is kind of empty in the sense that like it's not a defensive stat. So like, I don't know where Kawhi and Draymond would rank on that.
Right.
I'll
just give you PER. Kevin Durant is second in PER.
Right.
At 28.2.
I imagine who's Curry's first then?
Oh yeah. He's at 31.5.
Yeah.
Draymond Green is not listed.
It's an offensive stat, so like that.
It totally is,
yeah. Yeah. So you wouldn't put Draymond Green in the top 5 then?
I would if it was just we're building a team. Like if you asked me to list a top 5, like just regardless of position, just rank the top 5 players, it'd be hard for me to keep them off. All right, so I'll just look at offensive win shares. Kevin Durant is still second.
Well, yeah, if it's offensive win shares, sure, certainly.
Okay, defensive win shares. Draymond Green is 6th.
That I don't like that.
You don't like it?
Well, I mean, in the sense he finished second in Defensive Player of the Year. Easily, you can make an argument that he could finish first, considering he has to guard more positions than Kawhi Leonard. But,
well, Kawhi is not even first. Paul Millsap is first.
And he's a good defender. I think he finished like 3rd or 4th. And he'd probably he would definitely be in my top 15. So like if we're doing first team All NBA, 2nd or 3rd All NBA, like Paul Millsap. Go ahead.
Durant's not in the top 20 in win shares for defense.
Yeah, I mean, of course not.
I mean,
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm a big Draymond Green guy.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not be all those guys, right? Like, I actually think like you watch Sean Livingston play now, and like he's almost unguardable in the post when he gets like one of these small point guards on him. Which is funny because like he plays a position that now like you generally want those guys to be good shooters. He never shoots threes, and he has a great post-up game. But like, yeah, I mean, like just that roster is so.
I mean, still, like they don't even need him to though, because like everyone who's kind of out there with them, like they're all 3-point shooters.
Right. But like you want to stick these small guards on the floor. It's like they might not even like try and get Curry open. It's like they're gonna try and switch him onto Sean Livingston in the post. He's so good there. Like I feel like I didn't even really remember what type of player he was like 2 years ago, and now like I don't know when he's gonna be a free agent, but like someone's gonna throw a bunch of money at him. Like have to.
Right.
So
it's interesting. So in just win shares, period. Steph Curry is first. Durant is second. And Draymond Green is 10th.
Yikes.
Which, I mean, I don't know. I think it kind of evens out because like he has some really bad offensive games. Like he'll go like 3 of 11 in one game.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like you won't see that from Durant. I mean, that's the problem for him. Like, but even DeAndre Jordan, like he's ninth. He's ahead of Draymond Green in win shares.
Ugh.
I mean, you're talking about like, I mean, I hate to say it, Timmy boy, but you're giving me like the Derek Jeter case for Draymond Green a little bit.
I'm not even gonna dignify that word.
It's happening. I'm just saying, like intangibles, like what he brings to the game can't be quantified by stats.
Well, the thing is like literally some of it can't because like they've just started measuring.
No, I get
like,
it.
Defensive usage, right? But I mean DeAndre Jordan, like nobody thinks somebody's more overrated than me and DeAndre Jordan. Like I literally could not stand him as a player. Like I mean, you're just always playing 4-on-5 on offense. Like it's just like you can't ever win like that. Like in today's NBA, like you can't win like that, which is why they don't.
Well, you can write to John Hollinger and you can tell him that his win share stat is dumb.
Well, no, I thought he made it PER. I don't know.
He did make it. I don't know who made up win shares. I just said John Hollinger because he said stuff.
I think win shares has been around a little bit longer than PER. PER was like a offensive stat that came along. So
okay, so I want to talk about one last thing and then we'll wrap it up for our first podcast. So Leicester City won the Premier League today. This is soccer, by the way, for those who aren't familiar with what the Premier League is. So they won the Premier League. They were 5,000 to 1 underdogs to start the year. As Timmy mentioned to me earlier today, you can't go to like a sports book and find like 5,000 to 1 odds on anything. So why don't you like try to like give us a basketball, like what would have to happen in like basketball for like the same situation to be applicable, I guess. I'll put that right. Like football or some other sport.
It has to be baseball, and I'll explain why.
So you're talking about like AAA and stuff,
right? So as little as like 6 years ago, they were in like the 3rd division of English football, right?
Okay. So what is that in?
It would be like AA.
Okay, so
right.
Leicester City. So it'd be like if the South Bend Cubs or whatever.
Right. So like one of these super small town teams, like never really going to be good financially. So like that's what they are. So
okay.
Last year, in the middle of April, which means that there's basically like a month to go in the season, like they were favored to be relegated out of like the Premier League. And then they in
the Premier League, if you're in the bottom 3, like you're not in the top league anymore.
Right, so you're going to get relegated down to like the championship division, which they call the championship, but it's like the 2nd division. So yeah, every year 3 teams go down and then 3 teams come up. So they kind of had a great escape last year where they won like 5 of their last 6 matches just to stay in the top flight. So the nice thing, for our American sports, like we don't ever have anything like it in the sense that like all of our championships are decided by playoffs. Well, for them, it's like every team plays the exact same schedule. So they're playing every single team home and away one time. So
there's 20 teams, right?
20 teams. So you're having 19 home games, 19 away games for a total of 38.
Okay.
So there's no like, getting hot in the playoffs. It's like, nope, every game is worth, 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, 0 points for a loss. So,
Right.
I mean, you look at most of the preseason like publications this year, and it's like everyone thinks they're going to get relegated. They're going to finish in the bottom 3. And I mean, 5,000 to 1, like, like Greg was saying, I looked today. You can get a couple of college football teams at like 2,000 to 1, but they don't even offer 5,000 to 1. Like, I mean,
who's 2,000 to 1?
So you could get next year, you could get 2,000 to 1. You could get teams like San Diego State. You could get like Duke. You could get like Colorado. You could get like I think I saw Kentucky was on there. So like basically like teams that like, man, even at 2,000 to 1, like you're throwing your money away, right?
Yeah.
So like 5,000 to 1, like maybe if you went and you were like a specialty player at the sports book, you'd be like, hey, I want to put some money down on like
Bowling Green.
Yeah, like Bowling Green or like Louisiana Monroe. Like what are you, like what are you gonna offer me? That's what it would be like. So, and you know what the crazy part is like they've been in this position almost the whole year, right? This isn't like
they started out like hot and everyone was joking about it, like, oh yeah, Leicester, they're gonna win the league.
Right. So like, I mean, it's kind of like a perfect storm of events where like, Chelsea really struggled and Manchester United struggled and Arsenal struggled. And so it's like, you're not even being chased by one of the like premier teams of English football, right? Like you're being chased by another team that's like not 5,000 to 1, but like that nobody really expects to ever win. I mean, look, like their financials are just it's going to be kind of twofold. One, they're going to get a lot more money because of this. But like, obviously their players have overperformed, so it's going to make it that much harder to keep them.
Right.
I mean, they've got a couple of different players that like were nominated for like the league's player of the year. So, yeah, I mean, the weird part though, and like it probably loses some luster is like, when they won the title today, like they're not playing. Like like we're just not used to that. Like they're not even at a stadium. Like they're just at home because they played yesterday.
Right, they played yesterday.
They played on Sunday. So like they'll have a match. I think it's this Saturday, at home against Everton. And so like, but like it's for nothing. Kind of at this point, like that'll
just be a big party.
Yeah, like it's basically just going to be a celebration.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I mean, super exciting. Like, as a Chelsea supporter, like I would never root for like Arsenal or Manchester United or Manchester City or even Tottenham for that matter. Like, so yeah, I mean, it's hard not to cheer for Leicester, just because it's like, I mean, those are the types of fans who never thought that they would ever see this day coming ever. I mean, that's what they're 5,000 to 1.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, just it's a bigger upset in the sense like I don't know that anything has ever been like this in the history of organized sports.
Right.
Like not USA beating Russia. Like what this would be like, I mean, almost what it'd be is like if that Miracle on Ice team was in a best of 7 series against Russia and they swept them. Like that would probably be like 5,000 to 1.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I mean, this is like one of the greatest kind of like underdog stories in the history of sports. So, I mean, they get to be in the group stage already for Champions League ball next year, so that'll be exciting. So, yeah, I'm kind of excited to watch this weekend and see kind of the stadium and the atmosphere. So,
yeah. Well, I think more than anything, it just gives me hope that one day the United States will figure out a way to win the World Cup.
I mean, they're not going to get 5,000 to 1. I can tell you that.
It'll be less than that. So
it will be less than that. But like, it feels, it does. It honestly feels like the odds are longer, right?
Yeah, it does.
Well, it feels like the odds are longer because now for Leicester City, it's like, yeah, they were 5,000 to 1, but like now that it's over, it's like, oh, you had two of the best players in the league this year.
They did. They
So
did.
like, yeah,
James
like
Harden and Riyad Mahrez, like
yeah,
yeah,
like now knowing that, you feel like, well, yeah, obviously they won, right?
yeah.
Whereas like for the U.S., it's like, forget having two of the top players in the world. Like, can we just get like 1 out of 100, like 1 out of the top 100? Like that would be nice.
Yeah.
So,
all right, man. Well, let's wrap it up for our I don't know, first audition of the morning paper podcast from Tilting Ground. I think we're gonna try to do this weekly. There's always stuff going on in sports. We can try to talk about things. So I think normally we're gonna try to do it on Sundays. But you know, we did it on a Monday this time. Baby stuff came up. So Tim, do you have a Twitter?
I don't. Well, I do, but I never use it. So I'm
You
not
never
even
use
sure.
it?
I'm not even sure what my name is.
Okay, well,
I read a lot though. I read a lot on Twitter.
Don't follow Tim on Twitter. You can follow me at Twitter at Greg2126. You can find us on tiltingground.com. Mike and I will have our podcast probably coming up soon, and we've got like a little summer interview series for Notre Dame and USC that'll be pretty fun. We're both pretty excited about. So have some special guests and stuff like that. But for I guess me and Tim, hope you enjoyed it. We'll probably be looking for this tomorrow morning. And until then, we'll talk to you later.
All right, take care.
All right.